Hello everybody, this one's a little overdue, so we're going to finally do our next video in our series of Infinity profile breakdowns. So today we're going to be talking about the drummers. This was a request from Discord. So we're going to start by looking at what they look like and discussing what you get in the box for them. Then we're going to talk about kind of ideas for how to use them. So behind me you can see the concept design art of the drummers. So this was like, I think maybe the first or second thing we saw of it. I can't remember if we saw the N5 book art first or not, but it's pretty cool. So the concept is it's one of those kind of classic Pano ideas of being high tech where you have a little like helper bot that runs around with a trooper, and they are synchronized, which means that they activate and do things together. So they can both move, they can both shoot, which is pretty unique. So the kicker about the drummers, though, is that they have drum bots that actually have weaponry, like relevant weaponry, instead of just being a little guy that runs around with flash pulse or a smoke launcher or a flamethrower like the Oxbots have had traditionally in the past. So let's take a look at what you get in the box. So in the kit that recently came out, it was basically the last Kestrel release in their line of Kestrel stuff, come with the new edition coming out. You can get a box that has one of the drummers, the multi-marksman profile. It comes with two drum bots. It comes with the HRMC one, the hyper rapid magnetic cannon, and then also the Feuerbach. So you would use this to proxy any of the other variants too. So like if you were trying to use the multi-machine gun one, you'd use one of these. Or if you're just trying, really, honestly, if I were trying to use the forward observer options, which are heavy flamethrowers, I would just use an Oxbot from like an Armbot kit. So if you don't already have an Armbot kit too, I'd maybe consider that. So if you feel like, I like having my stuff be more obviously showing what their loadouts are, and the no gun attached Armbot Oxbots are what I think of with for the heavy flamethrower. So just an idea, because they do have the same basic structure and like aesthetic on those, the drum bots and Armbots do. So or Oxbots, I should say. So this is what you get in the kit. It's pretty cool. There's a multi-sniper option for the drummer, does not exist. So if you want to play the sniper option, we're going to see here in a second, there's not a model out for that yet. So you just have to proxy that either with this one or with the sniper if you want. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about how to use them in the game. All right, so we're going to go do a rundown of the stats of the drummer and then the drum bot, and then we'll talk about how we use them in game. So let's start with the drummers first. So basic move 4-4, pretty average. CC 14, not good. BS 13 is kind of on, I'd say, on the average side for Pano, but good in the game in general. PH 10, they're not really trying to do any dodging with them. They're basically always going to try to shoot. Willpower 12, average for Pano. Armor 1, BTS 3, Vita 1, Silhouette 2, AVA 4. So you can run several of these if you wish. I think most people, if they're trying to run several, it's because they're using the little forward observer one as one of them. It's hard to fit more than one of the pricey ones. And then all of the drummers come stock with 360 visor, which means they can shoot from any direction, which is a really cool pull for me. The idea of having access to something like that is also kind of what's made me interested in the Mobile Brigada in Corregidor. So it's just a cool piece of tech. All right, now let's take a look at the stats of the drum bot. All right, so the drum bot is similar but different on its stat line. So it's got move 6-4. It's actually faster than the main trooper. CC 13 is lower. We don't care. Ballistic skill 13, same, which is pretty good. Not going to lie, I'm a fan of that. PH 9, it being a bot carrying around, lugging around a heavy weapon, makes sense. Willpower 11, lower than the main guy, also makes sense. Armor 1, BTS 3, Structure 1, Silhouette 2. All right, so equipment 360 visor, skills, courage, mimetism -3, peripheral synchronized. So it's got a little bit more going on in the skills department than the actual drummer itself. But it's mostly just meant to play off of it. So they're synchronized, like I said earlier. They're peripherals that are synchronized, which means that if you move the drummer, you can also move the drum bot. You can move them simultaneously, but you can't make one do like a different skill than the other. So if one moves, the other has to move. If one jumps, the other got to jump, that type of deal. So that's the synchronized part, right? So they act in unison. But they can choose different targets if you choose to shoot with them, which is pretty cool. But one of the big things is they can also, if they're the forward observers, both of them, they can both try to push the button at the same time. So you get two rolls on an objective, which is really, really cool. All right, so other thoughts on the stat line. Want to point out here that the drummer himself is Vitality 1 without shock immune, so he does go down to shock ammo, so he's a little weak to that. Fortunately, the drum bot has structure, so it doesn't apply here. So you can try to pick your drum bot back up, but there is no remote presence. So he's 1 wound and then 1 level of unconscious. So if he takes 2 wounds, he's done forever. So keep that in mind. They are a little weak, so they really have to be winning their gunfights to make their money back. So let's take a look at the different variants of the Drumbot real quick before we look at the profiles. So you have Drumbot 5, which is the heavy flamethrower and forward observer bot. You have Drumbot 4, which is the forward deployment 4 inches, Mark 12 +1 burst heavy rocket launcher. So good guns on that one. A little bit of extra. They're not hackable. Well, the Drumbot's hackable, but not the drummer. So it's kind of a weird little dynamic there. So moving forward, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Drumbot 1 is the multi-heavy machine gun. I want to point out that's a multi-heavy machine gun. It's one of the only ways to get that on a non-tag platform. And then you have the Feuerbach +1 burst with Neurocynetics. That one's a special mention in my opinion. I don't know that there are other Neurocynetics Feuerbachs in the game. I'd have to look at Tusser and some of the other stuff and some of the other sectorials I haven't played to know for sure, but I think that's a pretty rare thing to have. And then also you have a hyper rapid magnetic cannon. Again, one of the only ways to get that on a not like Silhouette 5 or higher platform. So pretty cool. All right, so now that we've looked at the different variants, now let's look at the profiles. All right, so back to the drummer list, so we can see the actual profiles themselves. So we're going to start with the cheapest and go to the most expensive. So the cheapest is, and also probably one of the most playable ones, is the Forward Observer that comes with Drumbot 5. So it also comes with the Forward Observer Heavy Flamethrower bot. So this is that cheat combination we're talking about where you have 21 points for 2 models that can try to push buttons together. So it's a pretty cool combo you can use that gives you a higher chance than the normal average whip 12 of a lot of Pano specialists to be able to try to do missions. So he's a good consideration when you take that into account. So next one we have is going to be really the only drummer that has the drummer himself be a good gun. So you have the drummer with ballistic attack -3, also Forward Observer, but he comes with a multi-sniper rifle and a flash pulse for 1.5 SWC and 28 points. So he's meant to be like a long-range active turn gunner. So if you need to put something down from distance, he's kind of your guy for that. But he does not have any MSV, and he does not have any mimetism, so he himself is really relying on that BS attack -3, so watch out for Warhorse. All right, so let's look at the next one. So now we're getting into where the guns are relevant on the Drumbots themselves. So you have the ones that are 1 point and 40 points. You have 2 variants. One of them is the drummer with the multi-HMG Drumbot by itself, and then one of them is with the Neurocynetics Feuerbach +1 burst. So these two have 2 very clear roles. So one of them is an active gun piece, the HMG, and then the other is meant to be a Overwatch piece with the Neurocynetics profile. Again, remember, Neurocynetics means you only have burst 1 and active. So he's definitely a defensive piece. Don't use him offensively for the Feuerbach. So now, for 42 points in 1 SWC, that's the forward deployment option. That's the one with the Mark 12 and the heavy rocket launcher. I think that one's intriguing if you are trying, but the problem is normally I take a Mark 12 if I'm trying to keep my SWIC down, and that guy's still got 1 SWIC. So I don't know that that will ever make it into a list for me personally. And then after that, you have Drumbot 2. So that is our hyper rapid magnetic cannon. So that one is going to be 1.5 SWC and 42 points. You're never getting less than 1.5 on an HRMC. And if you do, that's just highway robbery. So, all right, now let's take a look at the bottom 2. So these are 2 very interesting ones that I really want to try out. These are the double Drumbot profiles. So they both come with the heavy flamethrower Forward Observer option, but then they each come with one of the big guns, one of either the Feuerbach Neurocynetics or the multi-HMG. So those are both really cool to me. So they're synchronized, so you can move all 3 things together. So move all 3 things, shoot all 3 things, that's crazy. So definitely intrigued by that, and it's something I really want to test out. I'm mostly interested in the one with the multi-HMG and the heavy flamethrower bot, because it means that I have really all my range bands covered. So I have the marksman rifle for like just outside of 8, heavy flamethrower for inside 8, and then you have the multi-HMG for the big fights. So I'm a big fan. So like you definitely can do some tricks with some forking and things like that with them. So I'm really intrigued. But it is a lot of points invested in a 1 wound, no shock immune trooper that if he goes down, your Drumbots go inert and they're useless too. So just keep that in mind that it is very risky. Kind of in the same vein where like if you lose your black air, you lose a lot of points and a lot of SWC. So just be careful and take smart fights. That would be my advice if you're going to use them. The Neurocynetics one that comes with the second bot, I don't know that I could really endorse using him, because if you do, you're really looking at being like weak to not having an active turn gun that's very decent in that group. Anyways, so that's all we really have time to say in this video. So see you next time, and give me some more requests.